Joining us now here on Faithwire is Colonel Oliver North, and he has just been doing some great stories over there on NRA TV. Last time we spoke with you, Colonel, it was talking about one of my favorite guys on the planet, Dave Eubanks from the Free Burma Rangers. So this next one, honestly, is a story that, and I'm glad you beat me to it, because I've been wanting to follow up with this guy forever, because just to see how it's going, because I kind of remember when he took this plunge. So why don't you go ahead and explain who you talked to and what's the latest?
Well, and thank you, Dan. As you know, and all of your viewers need to get to know this man, Jason Brown was the highest paid center in the history of the NFL. And he gave it all up for a number of different reasons, but faith has a lot to do with it. In fact, he heard the Lord telling him he needed to do this. So he gave up all the fame and certainly the fortune, bought a farm in North Carolina. He and his wife, Tay, and their 7 children, they moved to that farm and started growing crops, the first fruits, if you will, to give to people who couldn't otherwise afford to buy food. And they've got volunteers that come out. The story is absolutely magnificent. And Dan, as you know, my definition of a hero is a person who puts themselves at risk for the benefit of others. Well, you know, that's understandable when it's a fireman or a policeman or a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine. But for a person to give up what he gave up and put his family at great financial risk in doing it, to be able to be a help to others, was a powerful, powerful statement about his faith and the power of prayer. He also lost his brother as a U.S. Army sergeant in Vietnam. Excuse me, I'm sorry, in Iraq. Right. And that's what started the original thought of, I've got to give something back. And this is a great story. It is so inspiring, in large part because it's not what you normally think of the kind of heroes that I've been keeping company with now for most of my life in the military and in law enforcement. It's a very inspiring story of faith. It's an inspiring story of self-sacrifice. And I just love the guy. I mean, he's fantastic about the way in which he speaks of his mission in life, and that is giving of himself to others, and of the challenges that he's gone through in this whole process. He knew nothing about farming. I mean, he admits it. He said, I didn't know what the first thing about it. And at one point, he and I were talking about the fact that he put a male and a female, in this case, it was goats and mules. And all of a sudden, he doesn't have just 2, he's got like 10. And he says, I understand biology a lot better now than I did before. I mean, it's a great story all the way around.
Yeah, I remember that from when he initially took the plunge. And it was interesting because a lot of people couldn't understand it. They couldn't understand why he would. I mean, I remember seeing the headlines were stuff like throwing away multi-million-dollar contracts. And I'm sure, as you're just alluding to there, that he would take issue with that, because I think we have a tendency as humans to sort of look at the maximum contract we can get and the maximum money we can get as the best possible option for us in life. But he obviously sees things a lot differently.
Well, look, the fact is, what he's doing is a profession of faith. What he's doing is misunderstood by many people. And you're absolutely right, Dan. There were people who said, you're crazy. I mean, what are you, nuts? You're throwing all that money away, the fame, the fortune, all that stuff that goes with being part of the NFL. And there's a lot of people just don't understand it, in large part because they don't have the same spiritual connections that Jason and his wife Tay and their kids have. They just don't, they don't get it because they don't understand that biblical message that we're all supposed to be adhering to.
Yeah. And how is it going for him? Can you give us any sense? I don't want to give away any spoilers on the episode that you have coming up on American Heroes. But how's it going? Because like you said, he knew nothing about this going in. He had to actually, get help from some of the neighbor farmers who kind of took pity on him and were like, this guy has no clue what he's doing. Let's try to throw him a bone here.
But you know what? I don't think it's so much a matter of people feeling sorry for him. I think it's a matter of people are inspired by him. And so the volunteers that have turned out from local churches, I mean, it's not a denominational farm. And he takes all the help he can get to harvest, to plant, to tend the material that they're growing each year. And it's grown each time. And it's in large part because that spiritual message inspires other people to want to be able, I want to come out and help you do this kind of stuff. Here's a better idea than perhaps you've had. And the wonderful thing of it is he's open to that kind of advice, that kind of support, and all the prayers in the world, because every year you're depending on that crop coming up as you hope.
Yeah, that's a great example of faith, because a lot of times this is something that whenever, and I'm sure you see this a lot in your travels, when people go somewhere and they go to a third world country or somewhere where they don't have as much as we have here in America, one of the common things you hear people say is, it just made me thankful for everything that I have. And while on the one hand, I kind of understand that sentiment, and I've probably felt it to some extent myself, on the other hand, I think sometimes the comforts we have here and the abundance we have here actually blinds us to the spiritual blessings of actually realizing that we are dependent on God. And so when I go to places like Haiti, and you see these people that are really just day to day, just thankful for anything that God provides them with, it's more of a connection with our Creator and that realization that we do need Him. And so what I see with this move here by Jason is that he's kind of doing a similar step, right? It's like going and right to farming, where you have to literally depend on God to make those crops grow. I mean, you can do your part, but they're not going to grow without, unless God, lets it happen through nature,
There are very few Americans today who sit down at a meal and thank the Lord for what's set before them on the table. There's fewer still who count on the fact that they're going to pray for rain, or pray for sunshine, or pray for the kinds of things that are going to deliver the crops. And he talks about those kinds of things. And while we were there filming, I was watching his kids doing chores. These are not fully grown yet. They're learning a lot about life, animal husbandry, taking care of the animals, making sure that the crops come in, making sure that the kinds of stuff for example, the tractors, the machinery, all that needs to be tended to. And those kids are learning literally from the get-go, how to take care of all that kind of thing. Most Americans don't even think about the hamburger. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Just materialized, right?
No,
he's growing them.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we're definitely spoiled to those sorts of things. And we actually just, we got chickens. We don't live on a big farm, but we did get some chickens. And, my stipulation for getting them, full disclosure, I didn't really want them. But my wife really did. But my stipulation was my kids, I have 4 that are under 13, 9, 8, and 3, is they had to take care of it. I wanted them to do it. And it's been great. It's like a small, microcosm of what Jason's done here, obviously. But I've seen that blessing of the kids, going out in the morning and cleaning things out, getting them the water, getting the eggs in when the eggs are coming in. And it really does sort of, for them, give them a closer, connection to where our stuff comes from, how these things are, they're not just from a grocery store and we just get to go pick whatever we want, right?
As a guy who married a farmer, right? Me, 50 years ago, I'll give you one word of caution on the chickens. Make sure that you keep the raccoons and the foxes away from them, or you won't have any chickens. That's the voice of experience.
I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I'll leave a little way in on the coop just to see what happens there. But no, I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that. The kids have named the chickens, so I'd be in big trouble if one of those things got scooped up by a predator. But Colonel North, why don't you tell us where we can watch this episode, because it sounds fantastic and I want to see the full story. So how can we?
Dan. So NRATV.org, and click on the button that says American Heroes. You can see still. It'll be up there forever, we hope. The story about Dave Eubank, who's one of yours and my closest friends on the planet Earth. You can see the new Jason Brown show, and he'll be the biggest guy in the frame when you do it. And you look at the size of this guy, you realize the good Lord blessed this man in many, many ways. The best way is to inspire the rest of us.
That's great. Yeah, he was a lineman, so big dude. But all right, Colonel North, always a pleasure to have you on and speak with you. And I love what you're doing with the show American Heroes there on NRA TV. And we look forward to seeing it. And thanks again for spending a few minutes with us here on Faithwire.
Yeah, great to be able to do so, Dan. Thank you again. Semper Fi.
All right, take care.